Hello, and welcome to Starry Storytime, a gentle, soothing space where evening stories and soft whispers guide you into a peaceful night's rest. Tonight, we're offering another relaxing tale designed to help ease your mind and lead you toward a comforting slumber. Before we begin, let's take a moment to prepare our bodies and minds for deep rest. Find a comfortable position, and with each slow inhale and soft exhale, let any worries from the day quietly slip away. It can be challenging to step away from the day's hustle, especially when it's time to sleep. Yet remember, the less we worry about falling asleep, the easier it becomes for our minds to let go of lingering tension. Allow the gentle rhythm of your breath to wash away any remaining concerns, and let tonight's story guide you into serenity. Now, settle in and let the soothing aura of Starry Storytime surround you. May you enjoy this story and drift into a tranquil, restorative night's sleep. Imagine, if you will, a diminutive cottage nestled within the grounds of a grander estate, shadowed by trees that groaned under the lash of a March squall. The air bites, promising a night made for hearthside solace. Here, our narrative unfurls. Clara thrust the cottage door inward, then leaned her weight against it, securing the latch against a particularly violent gust. Rain slicked her boots. She meticulously scraped them on the coir mat before propping her sodden umbrella, a collapsed black wing, near the coat stand. Shrugging off her trench coat with a sigh that feathered condensation into the air, she swept wind-tangled strands of hair from her eyes and carried a small, crinkling bag of provisions toward the compact kitchen counter. March arrived roaring, a tempestuous overture, she mused. Mother Nature, it seemed, was intent on fulfilling the month's fierce reputation, an evening custom-made for sealing oneself indoors, away from the elements' fury. She harbored no intention of venturing out again into the blustering night. Setting the countertop convection oven to warm, Clara padded across the charming expanse of her sitting room towards the bedroom. There, a welcome exchange occurred. Damp day clothes surrendered for the soft embrace of favorite flannel pajamas. Perched on the bed's edge, she tugged on the fuzziest, warmest socks imaginable, stretching her liberated feet before her with pure pleasure. The release from confining shoes after a long day was exquisite. For a quiet moment, Clara sat bathed in the amber glow of her bedside lamp, surveying the sanctuary she inhabited. Remarkable fortune had led her, these past few years, to this converted carriage house adjacent to a historic manor. It served as her refuge during a sabbatical dedicated to chronicling the coastal beacons of Maine. Small, meticulously kept, undeniably charming. It was perfection. Her landlady, residing in the imposing main house nearby, offered the ideal arrangement. The autonomy of a detached dwelling without the burdens of extensive upkeep. Her bedroom possessed a sweetness all its own. The carriage house, long transformed into living quarters, boasted appealing hardwood floors, a cleverly designed kitchenette, and in the main room, a fireplace. Clara often found herself lost in contemplation, gazing through the kitchen window at the estate gardens unfurling beyond. feeling rather like a figure stepped from the pages of a storybook. Mustering the will to rise, she moved with slippered quiet across the polished boards, returning to the kitchen. From the grocery sack, she extracted a container of takeaway macaroni and cheese. Peeling back the plastic film, she slid it into the waiting oven, selecting a slow bake to achieve that coveted burnished crust. Atop the creamy pasta, true comfort food demanded patience. The fireplace, retrofitted sometime in its past with a gas insert, sprang to life with a cheerful whoosh at the flick of a switch. Crossing to her satchel slumped near the entrance, Clara retrieved several notebooks and a pen. Work beckoned this evening. International Women's Day loomed. A historian friend teaching high school had extended an invitation. Would Clara speak to her class? Knowing Clara's immersion in lighthouse lore, she'd posed a captivating question. Were there women who kept the lights? Clara, finding the query utterly marvelous, had instantly agreed to craft a presentation. After a year steeped in the annals of coastal sentinels, it felt like a luminous chance to shine a light, as it were, on the oft-overlooked female keepers. The sole difficulty lay in the selection. A wealth of stories vied for attention. Clara settled into her preferred armchair, a plush haven, propping her feet on the matching ottoman. Opening a notebook, her eyes scanned the pages dense with research. Agnes Martell, she decided, must be the starting point. The tireless tender of Robin's Reef Light in New York Harbor. To grasp the depth of Agnes's tenacity, one had to begin at her origins. Unlike many women destined to command light stations, Agnes Martell wasn't born into the keeper's life, nor even on American soil. In 1882, aged 37, she journeyed from Germany to the United States, her young son, Leo, in tow. She secured employment as a cook in a New Jersey boarding house where fate introduced her to a patron, Henri Martel, the keeper of Sandy Hook Light. Henri began tutoring her in English. Intimacy blossomed into marriage, transplanting Agnes to the Sandy Hook Lighthouse. Thus, around the age of 40, Agnes Martell commenced her apprenticeship in the demanding craft of lighthouse keeping. Later, in 1885, Captain Martell received orders transferring him to Robin's Reef Light, roughly a mile north of Staten Island. Compared to Sandy Hook, Robin's Reef Station presented stark isolation. Offshore, erected upon a submerged ledge. The new post initially cast a pall over Agnes. When I first came to Robin's Reef, she confided to someone late in life, the sight of the water whichever way I looked made me lonesome. I refused to unpack my trunks at first, but gradually, a little at a time, I unpacked. After a while, they were all unpacked, and I stayed on. Soon after, she gave birth to a daughter, Sophie, and the family of 4 braced for the long vigil. Clara paused, reflecting on Agnes's words. The woman's resolute stoicism resonated deeply. Widow, mother, immigrant, she had embraced available work, discerned a practical path, and stoically accepted even the profound solitude of this remote station. Her resolve was formidable, Yet her endurance faced further trials. In 1890, Henri Martel succumbed to illness. His final words to his wife were reportedly, "Mind the light, Aggie." Clara allowed herself a small smile. Agnes struck her as the sort who scarcely needed such instruction. Naturally, she assumed his full responsibilities while raising 2 children. Despite her proven experience, her superiors doubted a woman's capacity for the role. While she flawlessly maintained the light, they persisted in seeking a male replacement. However, after several years passed without finding a suitable man, they conceded defeat in 1895. Agnes Martel was officially appointed keeper of Robin's Reef Light. Clara knew from exhaustive research that tending the lamp itself was merely the preamble to a keeper's duties. Agnes was once quoted asserting the light was more difficult to care for than a family of children. Daily, she ensured its function, a task encompassing endless chores like polishing reflectors and, in winter, scraping away ice. Foul weather demanded activation of the fog siren. If it malfunctioned, she was obligated to strike the fog bell manually until repairs could be made. Simultaneously, she remained a mother and the steward of her island home. A 1906 New York Times article quoted her claiming as much housework as the Waldorf Astoria, a bastion of New York grandeur. Clara knew. Cooking, bed-making, cleaning, solitary daily labors. Even procuring personal necessities or ferrying her children to school on Staten Island required rowing a mile alone across the water. Clara struggled to fully conceive the immense difficulty of performing mundane tasks, taken for granted by others, in such isolation. And of course, Agnes was duty-bound to rescue those imperiled near her lighthouse. She estimated saving no fewer than 50 souls from drowning during her 33-year tenure. Agnes Martel retired in 1919, having witnessed Robin's Reef Light transition from kerosene lamps to oil vapor, and finally to electricity. Towards the end of her service, the 5-room light station housed her son Leo, now assistant keeper, his wife, and their 5 children. Agnes spent her twilight years in a small cottage on Staten Island, cultivating a garden, her gaze often drifting towards the distant silhouette of Robin's Reef Light. Upon her passing, the New York Post memorialized her. In the sight of the city of towers and the torch of liberty lived this sturdy little woman, proud of her work and content in it, keeping her lamp alight and her windows cleaned so that New York Harbor might be safe for ships that pass in the night. Yes, Clara affirmed silently, Agnes Martel absolutely belonged in the presentation. Setting her papers aside, she rose from the enveloping chair and returned to the convection oven. Pulling open the small door revealed the contents bubbling gently, a delectable golden brown crust forming atop. The rich, sharp perfume of cheddar drifted across the counter. Dinner was served. She spooned the macaroni and cheese onto a plain white plate, retrieved a fork, and carefully navigated back to her fireside perch. Curling comfortably into the chair, she placed the plate on the small table beside her. Steam rose invitingly from the dish. Best let it cool a fraction before indulging. Turning back to her notebook, she riffled through the pages, seeking her next lighthouse heroine. Her finger paused at Beatrice Quinn. Unlike Agnes, Beatrice had known several lighthouse postings before assuming headkeepership. Prior to arriving at Turkey Point Light in Maryland in 1922 with her husband, she had served alongside him as assistant keeper at no fewer than 4 lighthouses in neighboring Virginia. She remained assistant keeper when their tenure at Turkey Point began, but her husband passed away in 1925, leaving her a widow at 43. As it transpired, she wasn't much younger than Agnes Martell when she effectively became headkeeper. Though she immediately took up his duties, her official appointment, despite 20 years of experience, encountered obstacles. In contrast to Agnes, Beatrice's challenge wasn't rooted in her gender. Indeed, 3 previous Turkey Point keepers had been women. Instead, the civil service contested her age, deeming her too old for the position's demands. Fortunately, Beatrice was not easily dissuaded. She appealed the ruling and was ultimately appointed by President Harding, becoming, in the process, the sole female keeper ever to receive a presidential appointment. Her salary was set at $1,140 annually, roughly equivalent to $18,000 today. Much like Agnes, Beatrice juggled family responsibilities with tending the light. She raised 3 children, Clara, Eleanor, and Thomas. Clara had unearthed an old black and white photograph depicting Beatrice and young Thomas tending a flock of turkeys near the lighthouse, a practical necessity given the family's responsibility for their own provisions. Reaching the nearest town meant either a long 14-mile drive or an 8-mile boat trip across the Chesapeake. Furthermore, unloading supplies from a boat involved negotiating a 137-step stairway down to a floating dock, then laboriously hoisting heavy goods upwards using a windlass and winch. Small wonder the family maintained a garden and livestock to sustain themselves on the property. Beatrice diligently performed all the routine duties of any keeper. Before the light's electrification in 1943, this included replenishing oil in the lamps and trimming wicks. On one occasion, the fog bell mechanism failed. She was forced to ascend to the massive 200-pound bell and manually strike it with the 50-pound clapper 4 times a minute for nearly an hour. During this Herculean effort, she missed a telephone call from her son-in-law announcing the birth of her granddaughter. Clara grinned at the image of such a robust grandmother. Nevertheless, Beatrice later confessed, "I was never more exhausted in my whole life," a sentiment Clara readily believed. For 22 years, Beatrice faithfully executed this demanding role, retiring at 65 in 1947. When queried about her lighthouse service, she famously quipped, "Oh, it was an easy light chore, but my feet got tired, and climbing the tower has given me fallen arches." Upon her departure, Beatrice Quinn stood as the last serving civilian female lightkeeper in the United States. Thanks to her and the 3 capable women preceding her, Washingtonian magazine once dubbed Turkey Point Light the feminist lighthouse of the Chesapeake. Echoing Agnes, Beatrice never relinquished her affection for her beloved station, retiring just 6 miles away, where its steadfast beam remained visible against the nocturnal canvas. Clara paused, jotting notes. Then, with anticipation, she set the pages aside and reached for her dinner. Savoring the cheesy pasta, her gaze drifted idly towards the flickering flames in the hearth. The evening was mellowing into that drowsy phase where relaxation reigns and the mind begins to meander. The fire evoked thoughts of the ceaseless tending of wicks and flames in pre-electric beacons. Male or female, all keepers shouldered immense responsibilities. Clara doubted she possessed their fortitude. Luxuriating in the final, delicious bites of macaroni and cheese, Clara rose once more and washed her plate and fork. The kitchen, nearer the window and door, felt noticeably cooler now. She retrieved a sweater draped over a nearby chairback and slipped it on. Lifting her cheerful red kettle from the stove's back burner, she filled it and set it to boil. Task complete, she returned to her study nook and retrieved her notebook. Flipping a few more pages, she encountered the perfect subsequent candidate for her presentation. It felt incomplete to discuss female keepers without mentioning perhaps the most celebrated figure in American lighthouse history, Cordelia Thorne, known universally as Delia, second of Captain Alistair Thorne's 4 children. Alistair was only the second keeper assigned to Lime Rock Light in Newport, Rhode Island, commencing his service in 1857. Completed just 3 years prior, Lime Rock wasn't terribly remote, perched on a ledge a mere 220 yards offshore. Yet it remained an island. Every family necessity had to be fetched from the mainland by rowboat. Young Delia rapidly achieved exceptional skill with that rowboat, a proficiency that proved providential. Within 4 months of the family settling at the light station, Delia's father, Alistair, suffered a disabling stroke, rendering him unable to work. 15-year-old Delia stepped forward, assisting her mother with all keeper duties, while also caring for her incapacitated father and chronically ill younger sister. Adding to this burden, she rowed her siblings across to Newport for school each weekday. Renowned as one of the town's finest swimmers, Delia was hailed a hero from the tender age of 12. Even before the move to the lighthouse, she had rescued 4 men whose boat had capsized, using her trusty rowboat. Then, at 27, Delia, shoeless, plunged into icy waters, joining her brother to save 2 soldiers whose vessel overturned during a snowstorm. This act garnered significant acclaim. One soldier gifted her a gold watch. His comrades at Fort Adams collectively presented her with $218 in gratitude. Ultimately, she became the sole woman awarded the government's prestigious Gold Life-Saving Medal in 1881, recognition earned for rescuing 2 more Fort Adams soldiers who had fallen through the ice while traversing Newport Harbor. In 1877, Delia's mother grew ill, passing away the following year. Delia received the official appointment as head lightkeeper in 1879, earning $750 per year, making her the highest-paid keeper in the nation at that time. Clara's thoughts were interrupted by the kettle's cheerful whistle. She navigated to the counter, switched off the burner, lifted the kettle, and poured steaming water carefully over a peppermint tea bag nestled in a mug. The window pane above the counter rattled briefly as the wind asserted itself. Clara hugged her sweater tighter and carried the hot beverage back to her fireside chair. Blowing gently across the surface, she set it down to steep, then resumed her reading. Delia never maintained a formal log of her rescues, but the press eagerly disseminated tales of her bravery far and wide. Accounts credited her with saving 18 lives over her 54 years on the island. News of her exploits appeared in prominent publications like Harper's Weekly and the New York Tribune. Delia transformed into a cherished public figure, eventually meeting admirals, presidents, and luminaries such as the feminist Susan B. Anthony. Her final documented rescue occurred at age 63, when a visiting friend inadvertently capsized her own rowboat. By 64, Delia was a beneficiary of the Carnegie Hero Fund, receiving a monthly stipend of $30. The great lady of Lime Rock Light passed away in 1911, aged 69. Bells tolled across Newport, flags flew at half-mast, and 1,400 mourners attended her funeral. She would undoubtedly have felt immense pride witnessing the station's renaming to Ida Lewis Rock Light. An unprecedented honor for a lightkeeper in the United States. Songs were even composed celebrating her life. Clara set her notebook down and lifted her tea, blowing softly again. She turned, her gaze drawn once more to the kitchen window. Darkness had fully descended outside. The cold rain drummed against the glass, punctuated by louder splatters when fierce gusts hurled fat drops against the pane. She tried to conjure the feeling. Countless dark nights spent alone by keepers, fulfilling their duties amidst the worst weather imaginable. Relishing her snug refuge beside the fire, Clara knew with sudden clarity who her fourth and final lighthouse heroine must be. Returning to her primary area of interest, Maine, she opened her notebook to the pages detailing the teenage hero, Ilara Vance. Ilara moved with her family to the profoundly isolated lighthouse on Matanicus Rock in 1853. She was the fourth of 9 children, born to lightkeeper Silas Vance and his wife, Prudence. Ilara's sources described the rock as among the most remote beacon locations on the eastern seaboard, a barren isle. The nearest supply point for the family was Rockland, a 23-mile boat journey away. Ilara's brother, Caleb, harbored no interest in lightkeeping, preferring life aboard fishing vessels. Meanwhile, seeking to supplement their income, her father Silas also spent time catching fish and lobster to sell in Rockland. Consequently, Ilara assumed many of her father's light-keeping responsibilities at the remarkably young age of 15. This she did while simultaneously caring for her 3 younger sisters and her mother, Prudence, who suffered from chronic illness. Ilara's role as de facto assistant keeper was complicated by the lard lamps she managed. The New England Historical Society quoted her. Sometimes they would not burn so well when first lighted, especially in cold weather when the oil got cold. Then some nights I could not sleep a wink all night, and many nights I have watched the light my part of the night, thinking nervously what might happen should the light fail. Yet she persevered faithfully, adding, "In all these years, I always put the lamps in order, and I lit them at sunset." Despite the immense burden she carried at such a tender age, Lara found time to read the logs left by previous keepers, which chronicled devastating storms. Learning of one tempest that had utterly destroyed the original lighthouse, she grew concerned about the structural integrity of the current keeper's house. She relocated her mother's bedroom to what she judged the sturdiest section of the dwelling, a prescient decision that would soon save Prudence. In January 1856, Silas grew anxious. The supply ship, expected twice yearly, had failed to reach them the previous autumn due to inclement weather. Worried about dwindling winter provisions, both food and lamp fuel, he instructed Ilara to tend the lighthouse while he journeyed to Rockland. With Caleb away fishing, Ilara was left solely responsible for her sisters, her ailing mother, and keeping the twin beacons lit. Shortly after Silas's departure, a monstrous gale descended. For 3 days, it savaged the island, damaging the very portion of the keeper's house where Prudence had previously slept. The storm raged unabated, eventually inundating the island in knee-deep, frigid seawater. Ilara was forced to move her entire family into the upper level of the North Lighthouse Tower for safety. Over her mother's protests during a brief lull, she waded out to the chicken coop. Miraculously, she managed to rescue all but one of her hens, shepherding the rest to safety within the tower. Before the storm finally subsided, a colossal wave completely obliterated the keeper's house. The storm became legendary in New England annals. Silas was unable to return to the island for 4 weeks. Throughout this entire period, Ilara kept the lights burning without fail, undoubtedly preventing countless maritime disasters on Matanicus Rock. Thanks to her rescued chickens, she sustained her family on meager rations of a cup of cornmeal and 1 egg per person per day. According to the Historical Society, 17-year-old Ilara reflected on the ordeal. Some reason, I know not why, I had no misgivings and went on with my work as usual. For 4 weeks, owing to rough weather, no landing could be effected on the rock. During this time, we were without the assistance of any male member of our family. Though at times greatly exhausted by my labors, but once did the lights fail. Under God, I was able to perform all my accustomed duties as well as my father's. Clara paused, taking another sip of now lukewarm tea. She turned the page and continued reading. In stark contrast to Delia Thorne's celebrated exploits, Ilara's heroism went largely unheralded at the time. In 1861, her father was replaced as keeper by President Lincoln due to political differences. Lighthouse appointments were political patronage. Ilara, however, had formed a deep attachment to the wind-swept rock and requested permission to remain and train the incoming keeper, Captain Elias Croft. As fate would have it, she eventually fell in love with Croft's son, Gideon. They married and served together as assistant keepers on Matanicus Rock for 14 years, raising 4 children amidst the waves and wind. In 1875, after 22 years in residence, Ilara finally left the island. She and Gideon were appointed keepers at Whitehead Light, where they served for another 15 years before retiring. Ilara's final known letter spoke of recurring dreams about the lamps at Matanicus Rock. I wonder, she mused, if the care of the lighthouse will follow my soul. This final sentiment made Clara pause, reflecting on all four women. A common thread bound them, an unshakable conviction that the light was a calling, a duty they were compelled to fulfill. They arrived at this demanding, isolated existence via different paths, yet lived it with congruent, unwavering devotion. Often their sole reward was the quiet knowledge of duty faithfully discharged. Clara sighed, closing her notebooks with a sense of completion. She felt prepared to share these resonant stories. Glancing sideways, she noticed her empty mug. Simultaneously, a wave of profound tiredness washed over her. Like Alara's 4-day tempest, the March winds persisted, rattling the small kitchen window. Mother Nature seemed to be whispering that it was time to seek refuge in bed. Setting aside her papers and books, Clara stood and stretched. She carried the empty mug to the kitchen, placing it gently in the sink. After tidying her satchel for the morning, she switched off the gas flame in the fireplace, plunging the sitting room into comfortable darkness. Her soft bed waited, nestled in the corner, piled high with a downy comforter. Clara sat on the edge, peeled off her fuzzy socks, and slid her feet deep beneath the covers, stretching her toes down towards the tightly tucked sheet. Pulling the duvet up to her chin, she rolled onto her side and extinguished the bedside lamp. The golden pool of light vanished. She lay in the encompassing dark, listening to the rhythmic drumming of early March rain upon the roof. Yawning, she burrowed deeper into her pillows. The storm's cadence lulled her as her eyes drifted shut. Her mind floated, picturing herself high within a tower on some remote, wave-battered island, expertly trimming a wick, striking a match, bringing light to the darkness. Far from feeling alone, however, a sense of security enveloped her. Cocooned by the ocean's roar and the storm's symphony, she understood, in that liminal space between waking and sleep, that she was a point of certainty, a steadfast presence against the encroaching night. Your day partly surrendered to the luminous world of Italian Renaissance artistry, now dissolves into the quietude of your bed. One particular vision lingers. Maestro Alessandro Filippe's Primavera. That vast tempera narrative spun on wood in the late breath of the 1470s or the dawn of the 1480s. A monumental presence spanning nearly 7 by 10 feet, conceived by the Florentine master esteemed in his era. The same Filippi summoned by papal authority to adorn Rome's Sistine Chapel before turning his genius towards mythic realms. Centuries later, it is these very tapestries of legend, the birth of Venus alongside Primavera, that echo his name most profoundly. And Primavera, especially, resonates now, a complex harmony of nature's lexicon and literary illusion, vivid in your mind's fading light. As consciousness softens, blurring the seam between waking and slumber, reality frays beautifully. Before you, Primavera materializes, suspended against an ornately dressed wall, solitary in its splendor, encased within a gilded wooden embrace. You drift closer, drawn towards its life-sized figures. Your focus narrows inevitably, Upon the composition's heart, Cytherea, sovereign goddess of love, beauty, fecundity. Though 8 other souls share her sylvan stage, Cytherea commands an uninterrupted vista. Her tresses, a cascade of spun gold, her generous form draped in regal sapphire and deep crimson folds. She is beauty incarnate. You behold her, and impossibly, her gaze meets yours. Her right hand lifts an open palm, a silent welcome. A flicker of doubt, did you imagine it, vanishes as the gesture repeats, punctuated this time by a conspiratorial wink. Another step carries you forward, dissolving the boundary between observer and observed. The paint itself seems to breathe, textures deepening, colors swirling into life. Cytherea extends her hand, a tangible invitation, and pulls you across the threshold, into the very fabric of the scene. You stand now within a burgeoning meadow, an explosion of flora underfoot. Hundreds of species bloom in a riotous palette. Pinks, scarlets, golds, ivories, some familiar, others utterly strange and exquisite. Cytherea smiles, a gentle inclination of her head directing your attention to the intricate tapestry surrounding you. Flowers push delicately through the emerald grass, studding the foreground with vibrant jewels of color. The air itself is thick with the unmistakable perfume of spring. Rose and jasmine mingle with lavender, violet and lily, a heady, intoxicating blend. Sunlight, warm and undiluted, bathes the scene. The sky is a flawless, azure expanse. If ever an archetype of spring existed, this is its perfect embodiment. Closing your eyes momentarily, you allow the sheer loveliness to permeate your being, drawing in a slow, deep, calming breath, releasing it fully. Eyes open once more, you study the figures arrayed before you, their identities and the unfolding narrative familiar, yet newly immediate, commissioned, you recall, by the influential Argenti banking dynasty, likely a wedding gift for the young Giuliano, a scion of the family. The Argenti, rulers of Florentine finance and politics in the Quattrocento, destined this allegory of spring, this celebration of nuptials, fertility, and life's renewal to hang above the marital bed. An allegory, an image dense with symbolic figures and objects demanding decipherment to unveil a deeper truth. Now, immersed within it, the story feels less deciphered, more intrinsically understood. You remember Maestro Alessandro Filippetti, his portraiture skills securing the patronage of the powerful Argenti. A master weaver of mythological threads, drawing inspiration from classical texts, ancient sculpture, and the Renaissance pursuit of idealized human form. Whispers suggested the artist harbored a deep affection for a local beauty whose flowing golden curls and elegant contours inspired, perhaps, every female figure within this painted world. You perceive it now, the graceful femininity shaping a visual music that flows through the composition. Save for Cytherea's steady outward gaze, every other figure is caught in motion, a testament to Filippetti's extraordinary ability to capture the human form in myriad dynamic poses. While the foreground bursts with light and life, the background retreats into darker tones. Beyond the figures lies a grove, heavy with oranges, interspersed with laurel, myrtle, and other verdant foliage. Each plant, carries symbolic weight. oranges an emblem of the Argenti, laurel echoing Giuliano's name in Italian, a token of victory. Botanists, indeed, have catalogued over 500 distinct species of flora within this single masterpiece. Moving towards the orange grove, a cool breeze greets you, carrying the bright, delightful scent of citrus. As the air stirs, your gaze follows it to the far right, where Favonius, the west wind, herald of spring, descends. He emerges from the arboreal backdrop, intent on claiming the nymph Anthea for his bride. She appears, ethereal in a diaphanous gown, a vine flowering impossibly from her lips. In Favonius's embrace, she undergoes a metamorphosis, becoming Flora, Roman goddess of blossoms, the very personification of springtime. Flora stands now between her former self and Cytherea, radiant in a flowing, flower-patterned dress. She gathers roses in the folds of her gown, scattering them onto the grass, each handful of petals drifting softly to the earth. An offering symbolizing both the season and nascent life. A crown and necklace woven from flowers adorn her. Her sleeves shimmer, seemingly crafted from dragonfly wings. Golden scales sheath her forearms, meeting the silken fabric at the elbow, where decorative plumes fan outwards. The intricacy astounds, a showcase of artistic virtuosity. You consider these first three figures on the right as a unified tableau, representing spring's inception. Another deep inhalation, a full exhalation. You contemplate the symbolism, burgeoning flowers, the transformation of the figures, a vivid portrayal of growth and becoming. Witnessing it intimately reveals the painting's rich, complex system of symbols and allegories with startling clarity. The Renaissance, a high season for art, where painting, literature, and philosophy intertwined, revisiting classical ideals, seeking beauty in all things, prioritizing humanism. The Argenti, prodigious patrons, famously commissioned works embracing pagan themes over purely religious ones, exemplified by this painting's central figure, Cytherea. She stands at the composition's midpoint, slightly elevated, slightly recessed, undeniably the cynosure, her gaze fixed upon the viewer. Behind her, the trees part, forming a natural archway, reminiscent of a halo or an arboreal apse, a semicircular recess, typically framing depictions of the Virgin Mary in religious art. Mary, too, is often shown in red and blue, Cytherea's colors here. This interplay of Christian and pagan iconography is distinctly Renaissance. In this context, Cytherea embodies love, beauty, and marriage, while Flora represents new love, potential, the dawn of spring. Cytherea signifies motherhood, the season in its full, realized glory. Hovering above her, winged and blindfolded, is her son, Eros, god of desire, love, attraction. His arrow is aimed directly at purity, one of the three charités to the left. The blindfold whispers the ancient adage, love is blind. Adjacent to Cytherea and Eros dance the three charités, splendor, purity, and ardor. Clad in diaphanous, flowing gowns that reveal their graceful forms, their fingers interlace at 3 points as they move in a circle. This circular arrangement speaks of continuity, rhythm, harmony, while simultaneously displaying Filippe's skill, rendering the sisters from 3 distinct perspectives, mimicking sculpture, yet imbued with fluidity and elegance. The Charities, a popular literary motif of the era, would have been instantly recognizable. From right to left, Splendor, the most adorned, wears a pearl coronet, symbolizing purity, and an elegant golden pendant, her gaze turned back towards Favonius. In the center, Purity, unadorned, looks towards Hermes. On the left stands Ardor. Together, they embody classical feminine virtues and the evolving stages of love. Observing them evokes a profound sense of harmony, a visual melody. It fascinates you how these 3 distinct forms coalesce into a single symbolic entity. The entire Primavera, it seems, meditates on multifaceted representations of beauty and the feminine spirit. So much unfolds within this single frame. Yet beauty and vitality remain the undeniable, overarching currents. Furthest left stands the god Hermes. His posture echoes Michelangelo's famed David. Winged sandals grace his feet. He wears a crimson robe, a helmet, carries a sword. His right arm reaches skyward, wielding his caduceus staff to dispel gathering clouds, ensuring the eternal spring. His gaze lifts heavenward, detached from the others. In Roman myth, Hermes served as divine messenger, protector of travelers, god of medicine, commerce, abundance. Here, he symbolizes the young Giuliano. Rumor held the nobleman himself modeled for the god, just as Flora perhaps represented his bride-to-be. Together, the Charites and Hermes signify late spring. Having contemplated each figure, each layer of meaning, you step back, closing your eyes again. Awe washes over you, the sheer beauty unfolding, the singular privilege of stepping inside this renowned artwork, witnessing its vibrant life. The scent of roses, lilies, myriad blossoms delights and inspires. The profusion of flowers and fruit, the fresh green sward, the leafy canopy, it creates a terrestrial paradise. A soft breeze caresses your skin. Flora has just scattered another handful of petals at your feet. A delicate pink carpet blanketing the earth. Hermes gestures again, pushing away a stray cloud, allowing the sun's golden light to pour unobstructed onto the scene. You watch the Charities twirl in harmonious grace, their light steps barely disturbing the petal-strewn ground, silken gowns and golden hair billowing. Above, Eros hovers, arrow nocked, while Purity dances on, blissfully unaware. The mingled scents of orange blossom, fresh grass, sweet flowers, and pungent laurel drift around you. It possesses the ethereal quality of a dream. Your eyes meet Cytherea's once more. You offer a silent thanks for her welcome into this vibrant tableau. A deep appreciation settles within you for the intricate messages conveyed through this masterfully orchestrated narrative. The weaving of symbols from literature, philosophy, antiquity, the contemplation of beauty in its varied guises, love's transformative power, the subtle nods to the powerful patrons, the incandescent use of color, the expert spatial composition. You appreciate the profound shift from winter to spring, maiden to bride to mother, pagan goddess to Marian echo, literature to visual poetry. The metamorphoses throughout pulse with vernal energy, new life, potential, growth, transformation, beauty. This is the season of rebirth, longed for through winter's darkness, now embodied in consummate glory. A universe of contemplation resides within this single panel. Small wonder it stands as a crowning achievement of the Renaissance. You sit for a moment, letting these reflections settle, integrating into mind and heart. A wish surfaces, to linger here indefinitely, inhabiting this perfect spring day, watching beauty and love dance eternally. Cytherea catches your gaze again, a silent assurance. You may return whenever you wish. You are welcome here. This sanctuary exists always within your mind's eye. Grateful for her benevolence, you decide to stay just a little longer. Finding a pleasant spot, you lie back upon the meadow grass, enveloped by the fragrance of living flowers. The earth yields softly beneath you, the sun a gentle, warming presence on your skin. Your body surrenders to the ground's embrace, relaxing deeply. Flora casts another cascade of rose petals nearby as you ease towards rest. With each breath, tension dissolves further. You feel utterly safe here, accepted, inspired. It is time for sleep, for rejuvenation, cradled within the most beautiful celestial spring garden. Peaceful, dreamlike images soothe your mind as you drift finally, completely, into slumber. Good night.